asked again and again, what is the relationship between our auric field, the electromagnetic field around our body which interacts with life, and that state in which we now find ourselves, perpetual presence, stillness. But this is just one of several questions that have been asked. Others are, what makes you get up in the morning? When it's not a wave or a particle, what is it? What is the purpose of life? When we answer one question, we answer them all. But there's an old story that might help us to bring forth an answer to one and all of these questions. There were two brothers. One was very rich and the other was very, very poor. Now the rich brother had a farm in which he farmed wheat, but he was very miserly. He didn't give alms, he didn't give assistance and aid to others, but every year his poor brother would come begging for a little wheat to make matzos for Passover. But there was a certain year that the brother's crop was not so abundant, so he was very reluctant to give anything to his poor brother. So when his poor brother came, he kept saying to him, "Come tomorrow, come tomorrow, come tomorrow," hoping that the poor brother would get tired of asking and not come back. But because it is necessary to have the wheat to make the matzos on this great day, the poor brother came begging day after day, until finally his rich brother said to him, "Go to Azazel," which of course means go to the devil. Well, the poor brother was a very simple soul, and he didn't know of ghosts and goblins and demons and devils or even angels. So he thought his brother was telling him to go to someone who could give him some wheat. So the very next day he got up and he took a little bit of dry bread and a flask of water, and he set out to find Azazel. But his travels took him a great distance until he came to a tree, and he was very tired, so he thought he would sit under the tree, and besides that the tree was laden with fruit. But when he picked one of the fruit was so bitter. He spat it out and said aloud to himself, "Such a wonderful big tree, I wonder why the fruit is so bitter." And the tree replied, "Yes, I have an abundance of fruit, and if I only knew what it was that was stopping the sweetness from flowing into it, I would be very grateful." Well, the poor man said to the tree, "Well, I'm going to find Azazel to get wheat to make matzos for Passover, so I'll ask Azazel for advice, and I'll let you know if I get the answer." So the poor man went on his way, and he came to a forest. And as he came into the forest, he was getting tired and hungry, and just at that moment he saw a little light in the distance. It was obviously a little house, and when he arrived at the house, he found that it was inhabited by 3 beautiful maidens who were weaving cloth. One was weaving in gold, second was weaving in wool, and the third was weaving in silver. And they didn't have many strangers come that way, so they invited him for a meal, gave him their hospitality. But the poor man noticed that the three beautiful maidens were very, very sad. So he asked them what it was. And they said, well, we've been weaving our cloth for our wedding gowns for all of this time, but no husbands have come for us. Well, said the poor man, I'm going to find Azizel, and when I do, I'll ask Azizel how it is that you can find your suitable husbands. So the three maidens were very happy. So the poor man went on his way. Before long, he came to a wide river, and he was standing there wondering how he was going to be able to cross, when all of a sudden he saw a boat with a ferryman in it. So he went to the boat and he asked, could he be ferried across the other side? And the ferryman very readily allowed him to enter the boat and started to row him across. But the poor man noticed that the ferryman had tears flowing down his face. So he asked him, what is it? What is making you so sad? And the ferryman said, I've ferried countless people across this river, but I'm doomed to remain on this boat. I've never got enough. I wish that I could find a way to be released from my bondage. Oh, said the poor man, I'm going to find Aziza. I'll ask for you on your behalf. The ferryman was very happy. At last he had hoped that he would have a chance to be free. Now, the poor man found himself in a very, very dense jungle in which there was no path. But he made his way through the dense underbrush, and before long he came to what seemed to be a dead end. A large mountain confronted him. But when he looked in the deep, deep underbrush that was around at the foot of the mountain, he noticed an opening, like a cave, mouth of a cave. So he thought to himself, I must find Aziza here. Surely this is the end of my journey. I have no further that I can go. So very bravely he entered into the mouth of the cave. And at first he blinked his eyes because of the darkness. But then it seemed that there was just a very faint light flickering in the distance. So he followed the flickering light, and before long he saw an old woman sitting beside a fire, stirring a pot which smelled very deliciously of stew. But after greeting the woman, he very, very boldly said, well, you must be Aziza, and I have several questions for you. First of all, I have to have wheat to make matzahs for Passover. And I met a tree that wants to know why its fruit are not sweet. And 3 damsels that have been weaving cloth and want to know when their husbands are going to come. And a ferryman who wants to be freed from his bondage. Now, very strangely, the old woman did not admit that she was Aziza, because it doesn't exist, of course. But she did say, you've come to the right place, because I have all the answers that you need. But she invited him to a very delicious stew. And then she said to him, you go and tell the ferryman that if